everyone, I apologize for the slight delay in this video. I wanted to get this out to you last night, but I got delayed with certain things, namely putting together my picnic bench that's going in my back patio. We got hit with a freak rainstorm, and that delayed me, and everything turned into a shit show. I actually sliced my thumb open while I was doing it. But everything's okay now. The bench is put together. The sad thing is, it wasn't that hard to put together. It's just the rain came along and just fucked everything up, and I tried to power through the rain, which was not a good idea. And in my rushing, I sliced my thumb open, my tools got wet, and all sorts of stuff. But I was just kind of like a madman. I was like Ahab after his white whale. It's like, I will put this fucking bench together. I don't give a damn. It was on my schedule, damn it. But because of all the insanity that happened last night, this video had to be pushed off to tonight, which is not the end of the world. But here we are. So, in this video, I wanted to do previews and predictions for SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver Toronto. Neither show I will be able to watch, unfortunately. With all the things that are happening this weekend, I'm going to a Crab Feast on Saturday, which is when NXT TakeOver is happening. And I'm going to a Kiss concert on Sunday. I'm going to be at Jiffy Lube Live. So if anybody else is going to the Kiss concert, you're in the area, you see me, say hello. We'll be enjoying Gene Simmons and company together. It'll be great. Kiss is actually one of my favorite bands, and I've never seen them live before, so this is going to be a treat, even if they are like all old, and this is technically their retirement tour, although I think they've retired like 6 times. But should be a lot of fun, but because of that, I'll be missing SummerSlam as well. But I am taking next week off of work. Not to go anywhere, but to do like a staycation, take care of some things around the house, run a few errands, and personal things, kind of get that out of the way and not have work kind of slow me down. So that'll be fun. But I guess I'll also be getting caught up on wrestling pay-per-views. I guess I could also get fully caught up on the G1 Climax. I'm all caught up through July. So I've seen all the G1 matches I want to watch through July. But yeah, so I'm not going to be able to see either NXT or SummerSlam this weekend, so, but you'll get a review when I do get around to seeing them, probably sometime on Monday, maybe Tuesday at the latest, but, yeah, let's get right into it. Before I do anything, I haven't done the top 10 matches for July 2019, let me pull that list up. Okay, let's do this. All right, July 2019, top 10 matches. Number 10, Rob Van Dam versus Moose from Slammiversary, a surprisingly good match. Number 9, also from Slammiversary, Eddie Edwards versus Killer Kross in a First Blood match. One of the best First Blood matches I've ever seen, and typically I'm not a fan of that type of match, as for reasons I've explained before. It's not one of my favorite gimmick matches, but this one worked. Number 8, Matt Riddle versus Drew Gulak. The top match, not necessarily the closing match, but the top match from the Evolve 131 10th Anniversary show. Number 7, also from Slammiversary, Rich Swann versus Johnny Impact for the X Division title. Very good athletic match. Number 6, the Brotherhood versus the Young Bucks, the main event to AEW's Fight for the Fallen. Like I said, I criticized the match for going too long and maybe dragging longer than it needed to, but overall I thought the match was really good regardless. Number 5, the match of the night from Fight for the Fallen, Kenny Omega versus CIMA. Very good stuff. Kenny Omega's first singles win in AEW. Okay, and number 4, also from Slammiversary, you're seeing a pattern here. Taya Valkyrie versus Su Yung versus Rosemary versus Havok for the Knockouts title in a Monsters Ball match. A wild, hardcore spectacle. Number 3, the World Title match from Slammiversary, Brian Cage versus Michael Elgin for the Impact World Title. A nice Haas match. I like a good heavyweight beat the crap out of each other type of match. I really enjoyed it. Number 2, Sami Callihan versus Tessa Blanchard, also from Slammiversary, the big intergender main event of the show. That turned out really, really well, I thought. And number 1 is going to go to it's going to be a tie, the New Japan G1 Climax 29 tournament matches, the ones that I watched and really, really enjoyed. I made a list of all the ones that I watched. I talked about all the ones from night 1. I really liked all of those. Will Ospreay versus Archers, Sabre Jr. versus Sonata, Kenta versus Kota Ibushi, Okada versus Tanahashi, all great. I think Yano has done really well in this as usual. He provides some great comedy matches, and he's a nice break from like the long, drawn-out, kind of finisher-festy type of matches. I think Yano definitely adds something to the tournament whenever he's in there. Ishii versus Jeff Cobb was awesome and lived up to all of its hype. I thought that was really good. Okada versus Zack Sabre Jr. I really liked. Lance Archer versus Lance Archer is having some of the best matches of his career. His match with Ospreay was really good. His match with Bad Luck Fale was pretty good. Really liking the work that he's doing. What were some other ones? Jon Moxley, some of the matches he's had. I watched his match with Jeff Cobb. I watched his match with Ishii. I watched, what other ones did he have that I watched? His match with Naito was really good. His match with Yano, well, I haven't watched that one yet. That's going to be on night 12, so I'm sure that one will be really good. But Moxley definitely looks motivated when you watch him in these matches, and he's definitely doing really, really well. Okada versus Kenta was really good. God, there's so many. I watched so many. Will Ospreay versus Zack Sabre Jr., one of the better matches of the tournament. Just great stuff all around. And once again, the G1 Climax provides a meaningful tournament where all the matches seem to matter to some degree. And just very entertaining all around. So those are my top 10 matches. My top match of the month is actually a bunch of matches. Just the G1 Climax tournament. I think it's been that good. Brand of the month for July. You know what? I'm going to throw a bone to Impact. I don't think the entire time I've been doing like the top 10 matches and brand of the month, I don't think I've ever given it to Impact. And many would argue that they never deserved it. But here it's like, look, Slammiversary was a really good friggin' show and one of the better pay-per-views I've seen this year. Because, you know, you look at the pay-per-views that have happened in 2019, Wrestle Kingdom was not as good as it typically is. Dominion was not as good as it typically is. WWE shows are whatever. The only great shows I've seen this year were Double or Nothing and a couple of the takeovers, and that's it. So I would throw Slammiversary up there as one of the top 5 shows I've seen this year, probably top 3. Really, really good. And considering, you know, Fight for the Fallen was good, not as good as some of the AEW's other efforts. You know, Extreme Rules was one of the better WWE pay-per-views this year, but not like their best. You know, a few other things. I think Slammiversary was just a really, really strong show and deserved a lot of praise. And because of that, I'm going to throw Impact a bone and give them Brand of the Month. Though it's something that they'll probably never win again, so here we go. I'm going to give it to them just on the strength of what I thought was a really strong pay-per-view in Slammiversary. So, we've got that out of the way. Let's go into the previews for the 2 shows. Let's start with NXT TakeOver Toronto, which I believe is the second takeover to happen in Toronto. Surprised they didn't number it. Let me see if that's the case. It doesn't really say here, but I'm pretty sure this is like the second time they've gone to Toronto for one of these takeovers. Gotta be honest, I'm looking at the card, not the most spectacular thing in the world. I like the theme of the Undisputed Era being in all the title matches, and I'm pretty sure that the show's going to end with all them winning all of the belts and holding them all up at the end of the show, which is probably the best thing they could do with this card. We've got Candice LeRae versus Io Shirai, which could be all right. I'm not entirely sold on Candice LeRae, not because she's done anything bad, but because I just haven't seen enough of her. So maybe this will be like a surprise hit. Who knows? Io Shirai is really good, and I like that they've kind of turned her heel and they're kind of taking her into a new direction. We've got a women's match that doesn't have the title involved, which I love it when they do stuff like that. Have matches within a division where there's no title involved, because that makes it look like the division has depth. Now, the women's division really doesn't have depth right now. They keep raiding the NXT women's roster and sending everybody up to the main roster, and they always seem depleted, but yeah, I guess to build off of that, we also have the women's title match, Shayna Baszler defending against Mia Yim. Once she beat Io Shirai, I feel like Shayna is like pretty much beat everybody, and I wonder, it's like, all right, is she going to go to the main roster? Like, what's the deal here? Like, what's the direction with her? Because I really don't know what else they can do with her at this point, because there's not really many strong contenders waiting in the wings to take her down, and Mia Yim kind of feels like she came out of nowhere, and nothing against Mia Yim, I don't dislike her, but it just kind of feels like they're throwing this match on the card because somebody has to face her. Like, they just got to have somebody. I would think that Shayna would win, but I could also see them, like, because there's just nothing else for Shayna to do, I could also see Mia winning the title, and then they just move Shayna up to the main roster just to pull that Band-Aid off and be done with it. But, yeah, I'm not expecting much out of this one. It might be an okay match, but there's not a lot of heat for it. It's just kind of something that it feels thrown together. Then we have the triple threat match for the North American Championship. Velveteen Dream defending against Pete Dunne, who just randomly got thrown into this. Like, I was like, oh, so Pete Dunne's just in there in the title picture now. Okay. I mean, yeah, he has a history with Roderick Strong, and they do have that storyline element. It's just that Pete Dunne literally just came back to TV and just popped up out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, okay. Actually, you know what's a match I would have liked to have on here? They've been building it on TV. I would have liked to have seen Breezango versus the Forgotten Sons as kind of like the tag team equivalent of what I'm talking about, where it showed depth within the division by having a non-title tag team feud. And I kind of liked what they did on NXT last week with Fandango coming in to help Tyler Breeze, and now Breezango is fully in NXT right now. So I kind of dug that, but in any case, getting back to the North American title match, I think this could probably be a really good match. All three guys typically work really hard, and I think Velveteen Dream is just an amazing character. And you've got Pete Dunne, who's an amazing technical guy, even though some of his matches, I think, get a little overrated, and some of them aren't as good as I think people say they are. I think that this could be a really good match. I'm expecting Roderick Strong to win the title, because, again, I think that they're going to do the heel stable wins all the belts at the end of the show. Which at this point with NXT, I'm not sure if there's anything else they could do, because they've really got to find like a hot direction for NXT, because they're kind of not that the shows are poorly booked or anything like that, but it's just that with so many roster raids of the NXT roster, they just haven't fully filled a bunch of spots, and they're just kind of struggling to find that hot direction that they had a few years ago. But yeah, I think that this match could be pretty good. So, and I think Roderick Strong's going to win the belt. So, next up we have the Street Profits defending the NXT Tag Team titles against Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, Red Dragon. Yeah, I think Red Dragon's going to win this. I think the match could be really good as well. This kind of feels like, I know the Street Profits feel like they just won the belts, and them dropping it so soon would kind of be disappointing for a lot of people, but I think they're going to want to go full in on the Undisputed Era, or the NXT Kingdom, as I like to call them. It's like, I hate that name. I just hate the name Undisputed Era. It just doesn't sound right. But anyway, I think this match could be really good. I think it's going to be, might even be the opening bout. Could be some great stuff. And Red Dragon, we know what those guys are capable of as a team. So, yeah, I expect that to be a really good tag match, and I expect title change here. And then we have the main event. A 2 out of 3 falls match between Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano for the NXT title. Now, this is, at first I was excited for this, because I thought, okay, this could be really good if they pick the right stipulations. I'm a little confused about the stipulations that they picked. So, Johnny was allowed to pick the stipulation for Fall 1, Adam was allowed to pick the stipulation for Fall 2, and Regal is going to pick the stipulation for Fall 3 if it is needed. Now, Johnny Gargano, he picked for the first fall a street fight. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But then Adam Cole picked for the second fall a regular match. And I've talked about this with the 3 stages of hell type of matches. They only work is if there's like a natural progression of the gimmicks. Like they potentially get more and more dangerous. That's how a 3 stages of hell match should work. Probably the best one of all time is Austin and Triple H from No Way Out 2001. Start off with a regular match, then street fight, then cage match. There's a natural progression upwards. Then compare that to Triple H and Shawn Michaels at Armageddon 02, where it's like the second fall was a cage match, and then it goes into a ladder match, and that feels like a little messy. Like it feels like trying to do too much, and 2 climaxes, one on top of the other. Another great one that really worked was Lucha Underground's Hell of War match, where it starts off with the first blood match. Then after blood is shed, then they go into a full-on hardcore war, and then after they've beaten the hell out of each other, they go into a stretcher match. And it's like, okay, that one actually worked. That one worked really, really well. One of the best matches in Lucha Underground history. So, these type of matches are tricky to do because you got to pick the right gimmicks. And here, I feel like you're starting with a street fight, and then you're going back down to a regular wrestling match. And I know it's like a lot of people online prefer, standard wrestling over hardcore wrestling, but there's that elevation of stakes and intensity that needs to build through the 3 falls. And it's like, if you're hitting each other with weapons in round 1, and then in round 2 you're having a catch-as-catch-can match, that just feels like a downgrade. And that's a little confusing as to why they would go that route. Now, I would flip it. I would start with the regular match, then move up to the street fight. And then we'll see whatever William Regal's stipulation is, if it's like a cage match or a ladder match. I'm expecting like a ladder match, maybe last man standing. I don't know. But so right off the bat, there's this match that had promise, but then they're kind of like messing with the gimmicks a little bit, and that might throw it off. Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano is a match I'm kind of tired of. I wasn't as in love with their matches as everybody else was, especially the one that they had where Johnny won the belt. I was like, it was good, but I didn't love it. It wasn't the best match in WWE history that Dave Meltzer said it was, but... mainly, my main problem with them is that I really feel like they've dropped the ball with Gargano. Following his heel turn, and then it looked like he was going to join up with Tommaso Ciampa and reform DIY as like a heel tag team. And then, just out of nowhere, they just kind of dropped that, and he was back to being a babyface again, and we're just supposed to forget that Johnny Gargano, like, tried to murder Aleister Black. We're just not supposed to remember that happened. And that... It just feels like Johnny's character is out of whack, unfortunately. And he's not like the hot babyface that he was a couple years ago. Or when he was feuding with Ciampa heading into WrestleMania weekend where they had that amazing match. So, I mean, if we're up to me, Cole keeps the belt. He has to, I think, because Johnny's just not as good as he was. And he needs something big to kind of fix him. And he needs a little bit more work from a writing and booking standpoint, because it's a rare case where NXT kind of dropped the ball with one of their characters. But in any case, I'm picking Adam Cole to win. Hopefully it's a great match. And like I said, I expect to see Undisputed Era holding up all the belts at the end of the show. I think that's the only thing they can really do with this show. That would be really interesting. But then again, who knows? NXT has surprised me before. So yeah, not my favorite card that NXT's done with these takeover specials, but they've surpassed my expectations before, so we'll see how that goes. Also, I like that it's only 5 matches, so it's like, that's one of the things I do like about these shows, that they're typically not long. They go between 2 and 3 hours. 2.5 is typically where they end up. So, yeah, should be good. I would expect it to be. Not a waste of time, at least. And then we go to SummerSlam, and before I get into the specific matches, I want to talk about the angle that they're doing on SmackDown right now with the mysterious attacker who's basically trying to murder Roman Reigns. And I've heard a lot of people give their opinions on it, and I want to give my 2 cents as well. I don't think it's great. I don't think the first segment where the scaffold, or not the scaffolding, but like the piece of the set almost fell on Roman, was produced all that well. Having a camera like conveniently positioned right behind the wall as it fell on top of Roman was kind of silly. But I will give them credit for creating, or at least attempting to create, an angle that generates lasting intrigue and leaves hanging story threads and questions that need to be answered on the next show, so it gives people a reason to tune in next week. So at the very least, it's an attempt to break from the monotony, so I'll give them credit for trying, A for effort. It's still not great, and it's still not there, but at least it's an attempt to break out of the monotonous bullshit that we're used to seeing on Raw and SmackDown every week, where just nothing sticks with me at all. So at least it's something. It's not great. I won't even say it's good, but at least it's like, all right, somebody back there in creative is at least trying to think. And maybe things will get better from there. Who knows? But maybe I'm just being optimistic. I don't know how that's going to impact the SummerSlam card, if Roman's going to face Eric Rowan, who was finger-pointed as being the guy that was behind everything, but that hasn't been confirmed. So I would expect to see Roman versus Eric Rowan added to the card. Maybe they'll do a skit in the middle of the show, kind of furthering the angle. Who knows? But, yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, it's an attempt at a storyline. And hopefully they can pick out, like, the decent mechanics at work here, and maybe fix some of the execution and get it to work better. I thought NXT did this much better with the Aleister Black who attacked him angle, and working in Nikki Cross, and having William Regal interview everybody on the roster to find out who did it. That stuff was really good. It was great, like, week-to-week type of material. They ultimately kind of dropped the ball with Gargano's heel turn, but overall I thought, like, the presentation of that mystery angle was handled much better. But anyway, let's go into the actual SummerSlam card. We have Drew Gulak versus One Lorcan for the Cruiserweight title. Is it sad that I know more about Lorcan than I do Drew Gulak? It just shows I watch NXT more than I do the main roster. This will probably be on the pre-show because the Cruiserweight title match is always on the pre-show. I guess Drew Gulak retains. I don't watch 205 Live. I don't follow the Cruiserweight division, so I don't really know what to think. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. Moving along from there, we've got Bayley defending the SmackDown Women's title against Ember Moon. This feels thrown together as fuck. I mean, Ember Moon is one of those people that had great potential in NXT, did some good stuff there. Then she got to the main roster. They conditioned us not to care about her, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to care about her. It's like, all right, so that feels random and thrown together. But maybe it's a fresh match. It's a newer match, so maybe the two can work together and put together something solid, but they're getting no help from the booking at all. This is going to be, if it's good, it's going to be because of the workers and the producers putting the match together, having to try and put something together and make something out of nothing. Next up, we have the women's title match, a submission match. Becky Lynch defending the title against Natalya. Again, kind of the same thing, where it's like they conditioned us to think of Natalya as like a C-level player for so long. And now all of a sudden she's the top contender for the belt, and we're supposed to care. And it's like, all right, this would work better if you'd been building up Natalya for months and months and months, but they didn't do that. She just won a contenders match on Raw randomly, that horrible 4-way that was poorly received, and now all of a sudden she's one of the top girls on the roster, and it's going to be the Disarmer versus the Sharpshooter, which again would have meant more if this had been something that had been waiting in the wings for months and months instead of... and this goes into what I talk about, where you don't need to have the same people on the show every week, and you don't need to have the people that are feuding interact with everybody every single week. They could have been having Natalya and building her up along the way while Becky was embroiled with Lacey Evans, and maybe have Natalya do something in the meantime, and they could switch back and forth on Raw. Switch back and forth between storylines. Natalya ultimately comes out on top on whatever her feud is, and then Becky does away with Lacey Evans, and then you're set up for this match at SummerSlam. And that type of stuff that shows depth and care and direction within the women's division, stuff that they just haven't done. And not just with the women. I mean, that's across the board. Like, just tag teams, singles titles for the men, like, pretty much everything. It's just, it is what it is. But, I think Becky's going to retain here. I would be very surprised if Natalya won the belt. And with the SmackDown Women's title match, I didn't make a pick. I guess I'll go with Ember Moon just for the shock value. It's like, oh, this new person won the belt. Oh, my God. So I'll pick Ember Moon to win the belt. Then moving right along from there, we have Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt. The Fiend Bray Wyatt. Now, I actually like this. They're actually doing a decent job of repairing Bray Wyatt, something I didn't think was possible. I actually kind of like the... I had never seen the Playhouse, the Pee-wee's Playhouse. I forget, Firefly Funhouse, I think they're called. I'd never seen them before, and I'd been hearing about them for months, and I finally started watching them in the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, I kind of like this split personality thing where Bray's like crazy, and he's like a Mr. Rogers type with a demon living inside, and he kind of splits back and forth between the two. Kind of gives him this like twisted, crazy kind of presentation, and he's a heel that does heel things. He beat up Mick Foley. He attacked Finn Balor, who he has a history with, by the way. I don't know if they've referenced that on TV, but the two have a history. And he's actually getting away with the bad things that he does. I'm like, oh my God, the heel's building heat and intrigue. What is going on? This is crazy. Wow. See, they can do it if they try. They can do it if they try. Now, if I watch this pay-per-view and Finn Balor fucking goes over, I'm going to rip my hair out, because there's no way you build this much intrigue for months. Bray Wyatt has not wrestled a match the entire time, and he's one of the most intriguing characters on the show. How he got to that point after the burial that he'd been getting for years, I don't know. But he somehow managed to fix himself. If I watch this pay-per-view and Finn Balor goes over, I'm going to lose my goddamn mind, because there is no excuse for The Fiend to do the job here. I think they've built some decent intrigue into this character. I think Bray Wyatt is back to being interesting. Maybe not to the degree that he was when he was red hot, but it's like they've fixed him. They've got people invested in him again. Do not squander it. Let him go over. For fuck's sake. Fuck me. Let The Fiend go over. He absolutely has to go. This is the one match where I'm looking at And I'm looking up and down the card. I'm not super invested in who goes over in a lot of them, but this is one where it's like Bray Wyatt has to go over here. He absolutely has to. And any other option is wrong. That's how, because they've actually managed to fix this guy. And if he just loses to Finn Balor on pay-per-view again, it's just going to flush all that down the drain. So that's my 2 cents on that. Then we've got AJ Styles defending the U.S. title against Ricochet. I thought their match at Extreme Rules was good, not great. Maybe they can have a better match here. I like that they've given AJ Gallows and Anderson again, the OC. Even though it feels like that they're getting a push all of a sudden because they didn't want Anderson and Gallows to go to AEW. But hey, they're using them, and they're actually using them semi-effectively. DX beating them up notwithstanding. But they're actually like back to being a significant part of the show. So I'll take it. I'll accept it when they book guys I like in significant situations. And AJ's a heel now, so it feels a little bit more interesting than maybe it did at Extreme Rules. So maybe they can have a really good match. I'm really high on both guys. I've been a fan of AJ for years, and Ricochet, I love him from his Lucha Underground days as Prince Puma, so I think this could be a really good match, and hopefully it is. I'll pick AJ to retain just because he just won the belt, and they've got a heel faction going on Raw. It wouldn't make much sense for him to drop it. So that's my take. And then from there, we've got a couple of, I guess you would call them, specialty matches or attraction matches, I guess you would say. We've got Goldberg versus Dolph Ziggler. It was supposed to be Ziggler versus Miz, but then they changed it on Raw. And with all the shit that he's been talking about the legends and disrespecting Shawn Michaels and really laying it into Goldberg, just mouthing off to him, now Ziggler's going to be in the ring with Goldberg. And there's no other way this match goes other than the squash match. I think Goldberg's going to completely steamroll him and beat him in 2 minutes. I have mixed feelings about that. I'm a Goldberg fan. I admit that. I am absolutely a fan of the act and I've said it before. Goldberg's a one-trick pony, but it's a hell of a trick. And when he captures the magic, it is awesome. When Goldberg is on and on fire, it is some of the best stuff in wrestling history. Look to WCW, look to WrestleMania 33. When Goldberg really captures that spark, man, it is infectious as hell. And here, though, it's like Dolph Ziggler, a guy who'd been misused and abused for a decade, and he's starting to get a little bit of traction with this, fuck over the Hall of Famers thing that he's doing and his feud with The Miz and beating up Shawn Michaels and super kicking him, and now it's like, oh, you're just going to feed him to Goldberg, and that's kind of how I feel about it. Now, this match is probably going to be what Jericho and Goldberg, the match they should have had in 98 when Jericho was fucking with Goldberg for weeks, and it's the pay-per-view match that they never had, so I imagine it's going to look something like how I pictured the Jericho-Goldberg match from 98 going. But as is, it's just kind of it's an attraction match, an excuse to get Goldberg on the card. I'm not overly opposed to it, but at the same time, it's they have to keep relying on those part-timers to generate some kind of interest, don't they? But there are worse things they could do. The other one is the returning Trish Stratus, who will be taking on Charlotte Flair, a match that I feel is more interesting than the 2 women's titles matches. Now, I think this is a cool match to have. I just wish they had I wish they had set it up months ago and get us to this point and make us kind of whet our appetite and really make us want to see Trish and Charlotte. Maybe lay the seeds for it last year at Evolution. If they were thinking that far ahead, which clearly they weren't. As is, it just kind of feels like, oh, Trish Stratus just showed up one week and she got challenged to a match, and it just didn't feel very organic or natural or spontaneous. Didn't feel like it was any kind of storyline. It was just like, oh, hey, Trish is going to be in Toronto. Let's have her have a match, and let's put her up against our top female star. Well, Becky's the top female star, but one of our top female stars in Charlotte Flair. So it's a cool match to have. I think Charlotte's going to win. Give her a win over a legend. I think it's going to be neat, if nothing else. Hopefully Trish can still go and put on something solid and puts over Charlotte in a good way. I just wish they had set up the match better. Again, it's more like the week-to-week programming and setting up the big storylines and making these matches really feel like they mean something. As is, it just kind of feels like, oh, hey, Trish is back, and she's got to face somebody, and they just kind of threw Charlotte up against her. But, again, there are worse things they could do on this show. Then we have Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon. If Owens loses, he will quit WWE. Is it sad that I'm expecting Shane to win this? Is that kind of where we are? Because Shane has had like more heat built into him than literally any other heel in the company right now. It's like I'm kind of expecting Shane to win this, but yeah. I mean, I respect the effort of trying to get Owens over and trying to fix him after they've been damaging him for so long. The Stone Cold Steve Austin references are way too on the nose. I definitely wouldn't use the stunner as a finisher for him. And the whole anti-authority thing just kind of reeks of Austin anyway, and throwing the stunner on top of that just makes it feel like a carbon copy rather than something kind of exciting, new, and fresh. But we'll see. I mean, Shane has had really good matches in the past, obviously, and Owens, when he's motivated and has something that he can sink his teeth into, typically delivers something really good. So hopefully this match is pretty good. I'll pick Owens to win, but I would not be surprised if Shane won. We'll say that. Then we've got, I believe it's just the 2 title matches left. Am I right? Yep. Okay, just the 2 title matches left. All right, for the WWE title, we've got Kofi Kingston versus Randy Orton. I don't give a shit. Randy Orton, I'm not saying Orton's a bad worker. He's actually, when he's motivated and he wants to show up, he can be great. And he's got that old school kind of 80s style that I really like. So you would think Orton would be one of my favorites, but I can tell when the dude is unmotivated and doesn't give a shit. And I have never seen a guy sleepwalk through matches as obviously as Randy Orton does. It is actually quite amazing. Like, you can absolutely tell when he doesn't give a shit. And he just works like a formula bullshit match where he's just waiting to hit the RKO and hit all of his standard spots and then go home. Kofi Kingston, not really working for me as WWE Champion at this point. I think I've made the comment in the past where it kind of makes me think of what it would be like if the 1-2-3 Kid were WWE Champion in 94. It's like, yeah, it would have been cool at first. We all like 1-2-3 Kid, but after 4 months, it's like, really? This little guy is still the champ? I don't know. I don't know. And Kofi's reign, they haven't given him anything that interesting to work with either. His stuff with Joe didn't work. His stuff with Owens didn't work. And that's another problem with Owens, where it's like he started off the year as a face, then he turned heel to work with Kofi, and now he's back to being a face. And that's all in 1 year. It's like, so they're big showing him. They're Lex Lugering him. But anyway, that's just me ranting on WWE Creative. I'm not expecting much out of this match. I think Kofi retains. Because... do we really want to put the belt back on Orton for the love of God? Do we really want to give him another reign? I sincerely hope not. It's like, so there's no good option here. I either get Randy Orton or I get Kofi Kingston's reign continuing, which I don't want. So that's where we are. And then we've got the Universal title match, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins. I mean, they were kind of in a spot where it's like, what else do you do? I mean, I don't know what the hell else do you even do with the Universal title at this show. I feel like I've seen this match enough. And it's not overplayed like, say, Cena Orton was, but it's when I've seen it at WrestleMania. I saw it at that pay-per-view where Undertaker fucked up the main event. It's just, I've seen it. I'm good. I'm done. I don't need to see this anymore. And... again, I'm not saying that it'll be a bad match. I think these two could work really well together if they actually tried to put a really solid match together, which they just haven't done yet. So maybe that'll be how they be different. They actually have like a nice, really good match. But as is, I'm just expecting Lesnar to retain, and that'll be it. And that's kind of all I'm expecting out of this. So, that's the show. That's SummerSlam. Not the most spectacular card. Has a couple interesting things on there, but not something that I'm super excited about either. I'm actually not super excited for either show this weekend. It's really weird. But that's where we are. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon right below so you get notified when I post new videos. But that is all I have for you now. I'm off to go enjoy the Kiss concert this weekend and just have a fun time all weekend long. And when I get around to watching SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver, I will have that review sometime for you next week. But until then, later, everybody.